All right, my friends, I think we're live right now and we're waiting for the members to start signing on. There it goes from 0 to 8 to 11 and onward from there. This is John O'Leary, and something very cool is taking place today for those of you tuning in online from out of state. I have 8 friends gathered around live from our Live Inspired in-studio community who are hanging out with us today in Kirkwood, Missouri. Some have come as far as Webster Groves, which is 3 minutes away. Others from Hannibal, Missouri, and others yet from California, the state. Not the little city in Missouri, but the state. So as you tune in today, recognize that we have a live studio audience, and I am filled with joy that they're part of this. So for those of you tuning in from your cars, your buses, poolside, the office, welcome. And for those of you around the boardroom, I welcome you home. You're part of our in-studio. I'm going to put the screen up so that the entire community can follow with us on what we're talking about. But we're talking today about the leader in you. Matt Miller, you ought to be very familiar with this one. The leader in you, unlocking the freedom to live your best life. And the word that is going to be jumping a lot today is that freedom word. Unlocking the freedom to live your best life. So let's begin by, as we always do, starting with a question that the entire community ought to be answering. When do you feel most free? And so I got some answers in front of me already, but for those of you sitting around the table, if you want to bark it out here in a moment, feel free. I'm going to read a little bit of the responses I've already received here in a minute. But when do you feel most free? When do you feel most free? So here come a few from our community members already. K2, many of you who are in studio, you know the name K2. He's a friend and a brother of ours. Hiking out in nature, far away from technology. K2, you're not there today, but I know what you're saying. Hiking out in nature, far away from technology. I am free. Diane, when I travel by myself and I have no one else to worry about. Sounds good, Diane.
Sister.
Got a lot of yeses taking place in the house right now, Diane. Our mountains, when I'm out in the mountains hunting, that's from our friend Jake. What about some of the leaders in the room? When do you guys feel most free?
With friends and family.
With friends and family, anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say with old friends.
With old friends.
Yeah.
What else?
In the car with a song that I love on.
In the car or shower with a song that I love on.
Dancing in the car.
Dancing in the car.
Awesome. One more.
The end of the school year.
The end of a school year, which we are not at currently, but at the end of a school year is when I feel free. So keep noting times when you feel most free, because we're going to be returning to that by 1:30 when we launch toward it. Whether it's the mountains and the hunting lodge, or it's the end of the school year on the front side of a school year, or it's that song that you love singing in the shower or car. When are you most free? And how do we live it daily? Because we can't always be hunting at the lodge and we can't always be on the backside of a school year. So how do you live it daily? When I think of freedom, one of the guys that I think of pictured behind me right now, his name is Leon Logothetis. For those of you who follow our podcast, you may remember this one. Leon is from episode 136, and I was first introduced to Leon when my wife and I were watching a Netflix series called The Kindness Diaries. And we watched this guy who travels around the country, travels around the world, living off the kindness of others. He limits himself to $5 a day. I don't know what you've spent so far this morning on coffee. $5 a day traveling. He began the journey, by the way, let me make sure we're on the same page, in Europe. First in the UK, traveling on that little motorbike you saw, then in Europe, then throughout Asia, actually going from one side to the other. Then he came to the United States. He landed in New York City and made his way very slowly across our country, living only on the kindness of others. It's an incredible story. Most recently, he has started a journey that will take him from Alaska all the way down to Argentina. It's an incredibly long run through various languages, various societies, various backgrounds, very safe issues into very non-safe issues, living only on the kindness of others. And so I asked Leon, besides feeling kindness, how does he most frequently feel when he's on that motorbike, when he's in the presence of others, when he's asking for help and he's receiving it? What is that word that he feels most frequently? And the word he shared with me as he goes on these journeys is this one. Not a surprise. Freedom. This was a man who was living into the expectations of his family. He never liked what he was doing, but his mother and father thought it would be a good idea. So here he is, middle-aged guy, living their dream, not his. Here's a guy who doesn't love what he does, doesn't love the individuals that he does it with, doesn't love the product that they're part of. I won't go into what he did because it may offend some of us tuning in right now, but he loved none of it. He felt chained by all of it. And so he left it all behind, and he has found a world that fills him with incredible freedom, living very meekly without a home to even rest his head in. It's an unusual place to find freedom, but he has found freedom. So where do we find it? And how do we live into it more so going forward than we have looking backward? It's not too late to start. So you're going to hear that loud and clear on this in-studio podcast, on the studio webcast, so get ready for it. As always, my friends, we're going to end this episode by you asking any questions that you may have of me. If they happen to be related to technology, you can email us at info or instudio@johnolearyinspires.com. And our team who are actively paying attention in the nether regions of this building will respond to you very quickly to make sure you're on pace. If ever, by the way, my face freezes on you, just hit recycle on your laptop, and it's going to make sure it's reset. So you'll be good on that. Okay, so here we go. Let's talk about the leader in you unlocking the freedom to live your best life. I'm going to give you 3 takeaways that you ought to be demanding from me today. Expect them. Okay, expect them from me. But in expecting them from someone else, you ought to be looking for them also in your own mind. So, number 1, I love this one. Let's just define what the word freedom really means. We throw it around. You hear people sing songs about it. George Michael's got a great one among many, many, many others around freedom. But what does it really mean? So we're going to be defining what the word freedom actually means. Secondly, we'll unlock the freedom found in playing to win. And that might be different than what you're expecting. So we're going to unlock the freedom found in playing to win. And then thirdly, we're going to answer the call to wake up and get free. So we're going to define the word, we're going to unlock the power within that word, and we're going to answer the call to wake up and get free. So here we go. Let's dive right into the work at hand, my friends. Defining the word freedom, what it really means. There's an old dictionary online, the 1828 Merriam-Webster dictionary. I think it gives you the best meaning of every word. And so anytime I really don't know a word, I go there. And sometimes it's like old English. It doesn't make perfect sense. But I think they get to the core of what these words really ought to mean in our own life. It's a really cool descriptor. So this is 180 years old now, but it still plays 4 definitions of freedom, starting with number 1. A state of exemption from the power or control of another. Total liberty. Love that. Just put that one on your car. Total liberty. Exemptions from slavery. That would have meant something in 1828, and I think it means something today. Exemption from slavery, servitude, or confinement. So that's the first definition. These will be up there for a while, so take your time writing down the ones or the pieces of the one that matter to you. Secondly, exemption from fate. That is power right there. Exemption from fate, necessity, or any constraints in consequence of predetermination or otherwise. As in, you have the freedom of choice, the freedom of will. Quit blaming it on somebody else. Quit pointing to your right or left or in front of you or at your parents or your upbringing or anything else. Exemption from fate. Powerful. Thirdly, any exemption from constraint or control. And then fourth, and I really like this one because I'd never considered it, ease or facility of doing anything. Freedom. The ease and the facility of doing whatever the heck you want. That is freedom. That is freedom. So as some of you are writing down those definitions, and others of you are thinking about what they might mean for you in your own business, your own leadership, your own lives, what's your definition of freedom? I'm going to put this question up on the screen right now. But I'd like you in your journals to write down freedom for me is, and it could be that car ride with that song playing. It could be the end of the school year. It could be a vacation by yourself. It could be that hunting lodge. Or it might be more emotional. It might be cutting the tether. It might be no longer being chained to your past. What is freedom for you? I'd like you to write it down first, and then for those of you tuning in online, please chat it to me. So there's a chat feature on InStudio. Today's an awesome opportunity for you to use exactly that. But freedom for me is what? And if you have an answer in the room, I would love to hear yours, and I'll be sharing them as they get chatted in online here momentarily. But what's freedom for you?
Knowing there's always a choice.
Whew. Put that one down somewhere, people. Knowing that there is always a choice. Viktor Frankl would be proud of his student. Knowing that there is always a choice. Awesome. What else?
I would say living to what I've identified as what is important to me, doing what matters, but retaining the freedom to change course along the way.
Awesome. The ability to identify what actually matters and to change course along the way for Mary Beth. Awesome. What else?
Mine is a feeling of peace and contentment, realizing I am where I'm supposed to be.
Woo. A feeling of peace and contentment, knowing that I am where I am supposed to be. It's a feeling. It's a surety. Awesome. Anything? How about one more from this side, and then we're going to go into our community. What else?
Yeah, I was going to say feeling of ease. You know, I mean, the one, I think maybe number 4 where it said easy. It's just like it's this comfort that you have.
A feeling of ease,
Yeah.
comfort, and what you already have. And that is from Chris, who made the easy trip in from Redwood City, California, baby. Think about that. So before I say another word, whether you're online or you're in studio live, would you give Chris a big hand for making the longest trip so far to the studio? We welcome you.
Thank you.
For those folks online, we've got a couple more coming in. I'll share what I'm hearing here. Maybe. You never know if I'll actually be able to figure out how to use the technology, but I think I'm going to. So here we go. John's attitude. Oh, that's from John S. Got it. John S. says attitude. Yes. Attitude is free. It goes back to what Julia stated earlier and what Viktor Frankl preached. Attitude, choice. You own your life. KK, being in a state of knowing that I'm doing what I'm put on this earth to do. Awesome. Jake. And onward from there. Great shares, guys. So I want you all to write down now the one person that you believe most models this. So let me put the question on the screen for our live audience. You shared peace and contentment and knowing that you are placed on this world to do what most matters. Power of choice, attitude, and everything else that was shared both here and through technology. Well, who is the one person that you know who most exemplifies this? Brag about her for a moment and journal. Who do you know who is most free? What a cool characteristic to have. And that the punchline in today's episode is going to be, why not you? Like, why not you? Because you'll find if we went around and all one by one shared, it had nothing to do with gender or ethnicity or wealth or privilege. Many of the things I think the world believes will bring freedom. Not always. It might bring chains that bind. So it's choice. And it's a choice they made, the ones you just wrote down, but it's also a choice each and every one of us can make going forward. And I want you to think about some ways today that you give up your freedom, that you surrender it, that you allow someone to steal it, that you allow past experience to steal it, that you allow headlines or decisions made by others or mistakes you've made yourself to steal yours. So what are some ways that we lose our freedom? Because I believe sometimes we don't even know we're losing it. It happens through omission and commission. Just kind of slipping forward into life. So I got a live audience today. I'm going to use them, my friends, tuning in online. So live audience. What are some ways that we lose our freedom?
Letting other people's priorities get in front of ours.
And I let other people's priorities get in front of mine. I know Mary Beth is not alone. What else?
We don't forgive others.
We don't forget others. We are chained to the experiences of yesterday. Awesome. What else? Mike.
Stress of doing too much.
And tell me if anybody connects with this one. The stress of doing too much. The stress of doing too much. We live in a world that does an awful lot, and they wonder why they're overwhelmed all the time.
Goes back to that multitasking that we talked about.
And it does go back to multitasking, which all data shows is inefficient and ineffective and harmful to your health. How about one more? Donna, how about you? Miss Donna.
Yeah, I like the living in the graveyard thing, just being that victim or staying
Right.
in the past without allowing yourself to move forward.
Living in the graveyard. And we could take that in a million directions. The graveyard of where I'm heading, the graveyard of where I've been, the graveyard of other people's mistakes, the graveyard of all this crap I should have buried and choose to keep going back to. The graveyard of life is a place where many of us spend a lot of our time. These are some of the ways we lose our freedom. And it is a partial list. But now we're going to talk about taking it back. Okay? So let's talk about unlocking the freedom found in playing to win. Each of those words matter. I chose them very intentionally. But unlock the freedom found in playing to win. Pictured up there is a very good-looking man. His name is Jack O'Leary. He's next to his dad in that picture. That's a recent picture, but Jack and I, for 5 consecutive years, have gone on father-son trips. So once a summer, they pick a trip they're going to go with dad. And this year, that's in Phoenix. It was only 113 when we took that picture. My smile was faked. Jack's was real. He was having the time of his life, and because of that, so was I. But one of the games that we play when we are together, don't judge me, okay? I don't need your judgment right now, people. We don't play with money. We play with plastic blue chips. But we have a blast playing games together, and one of them is Texas Hold'em. And my son, Jack, beats me every single time. And at first, it was like I would purposely sit on hands or not call it out. Or he beats me every time. He's the most aggressive player I know. What's the move called when you put all the chips in the middle of the table? What's that called?
All in.
All in. That dude is calling all in every single time. Anytime I call bull on it, he's got it. Anytime I don't, he shows me his cards. He does not. I cannot win. And I recently, it was a couple years ago now, I said to him, Jack, how do you keep beating me? It's an important question to ask. Why do I keep losing to a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old? Why does this happen to me? And his response was profound. Dad, you play not to lose. And then he said, I play to win.
Wow.
Dad, you play not to lose. And don't misinterpret what I'm really saying here. I play to win. And I would suggest to you humbly, many of us are living in the graveyard of life playing not to lose. We don't want to end up there. We don't want to end up bound back there. We don't want to end up being the dog, letting everybody else down. We are playing from a place of profound fear. So what Jack was really saying to me that day, I think, Dad, you play out of fear. Daddy, I am playing out of love. And for those of you who have children or nephews, nieces, you've seen one in a grocery store, you recognize this is not unique to the O'Leary kids. Kids play out of love. And again, the words matter here. Kids play out of love. We work out of fear. Kids play out of love. They do. They do. And then we teach them how to work out of fear. So today we take back the freedom of playing out of love. Well, what's the difference? I'm going to go through a few of these with you as I see the difference between working out of fear and playing out of love. These are awesome. I stole these shamelessly from a little website called Little Buddha. So you've probably seen that website before. You may know the author. It's a pretty well-known site. So I shared about half of the ones she shared in total. But love is unconditional, and fear is conditional. There's a long list. I'm going to buzz through these. Love releases. Fear obligates. Love surrenders. I love the word surrender, by the way. I hate quitting, but I love surrendering. Love surrenders. Fear binds. Love forgives. Fear blames. Love chooses. You've heard that word a lot from the ladies and gentlemen live with me. Love chooses. Fear avoids. Love ignites. Fear incites. Letters matter. Love heals. Fear hurts. Love inspires. Fear worries. Love is patient. We can go on from that one. And kind. Fear is nervous and lives in anxiety, which, by the way, the majority of our nation lives today. We are an anxiety-riddled nation. Love is patient. Fear is not. It's nervous, full of anxiety. Love is brave. Fear is afraid. Love dreams. Fear schemes. I like that one. Love wants to play. Fear needs control. Love believes. Fear deceives. We almost made it, folks. One more left. Here we go. It's a big one, though. Love frees. And free. Love frees and fear imprisons. Let me back this up one. I'm currently today operating with two different systems at my hands, so it's kind of like writing at the same time with your left hand and right hand, wondering why sometimes you're spelling the wrong word. So that's what's going on right now. But love frees and fear imprisons. Those are awesome. We'll send you this slide out today. We'll send you the link up, by the way, to the Leon episode 136. You're going to love that one. But you may want to remember this, and you may want to choose wisely as you're deciding how you want to play going forward. Work out of fear or play to win. Your choice. I saw an example of this recently. My kids and I were in a park. We went to a park summertime. We heard this coach over a hillside screaming at the soccer team. We've all heard coaches scream. I kind of enjoy it, actually. So we're listening to this guy screaming, and it gets so loud, and there's so many whistles that the kids and I leave what we're doing to go check out the real action. Forget the playground, Dad. Let's see what this is going on. So we march over this way. We kind of take our position behind a hill to see what's going on. And there is this coach screaming at the top of his lungs on a very hot August day at his team. And they may have earned it, but he is screaming at their team. And eventually he blows the whistle repeatedly and screams several curse words, calls them over, tells them to take a knee. And he starts lecturing on them on how they decide to practice is going to affect how they decide to show up for the game, which is stuff we've heard before and stuff that is true. I think there are times to give pep talks with a little bit of passion. I've given some myself to my kids, to my family, to myself. A couple things to recognize. It is August. It's at the very end of their practice, and there's one more thing that you probably should be aware of. The team was 6 and 7-year-old boys and girls trying to have some fun, man. Trying to catch a butterfly every now and then. The soccer ball was probably getting in their way, and the coach was getting in their way of understanding what real fun is all about at that age. I think we are like youth sports, whether you are the class in here or the class tuning in right there online, is now a bigger business than the National Football League. And don't kid yourself to say, well, I'm just trying to let them have some fun. Sometimes. But we got to be very careful in the way we are leading these kids forward to understand what game they're playing and why and what victory ought to look like. So I'm going to say that on the front side because I think that coach was teaching and coaching from a place of fear. Now I want to give you another story, one that I experienced myself. This is a picture that was taken 15 months after I got out of hospital. So I am home. We're still going through a couple surgeries. I'm now back in school. But the dream for me as a kid, besides getting out of hospital, the real dream was actually going out to Colorado. I'd never seen a mountain before. My grandparents lived in Florida, so every summer we'd hop in a station wagon and drive down there. I've told that story before. But on this vacation, we hopped in a van given to us by a friend, drove out to Denver, then up into the mountains, took this picture of the Continental Divide, 12,095 feet above, came home, and 4 weeks later, that little boy, take a look at him, class. That little boy is not only in class, but he's on a soccer field. So this is my mom's leadership. She's a remarkable lady. But she signs me back up for soccer, not so I can get scholarships and kill it out there on the field, but so that I can engage, so that I can live a life that is not tethered by fear. So this little boy, surrounded by teammates, runs around but is bent over, skinny guy, bandages still on my legs, 2 layers of sweatpants, and gold swim trunks that are pulled up on top. It's the goofiest outfit ever. Okay, I'm not proud of it. Could not find any pictures of it, but that's me. Near the end of the game, the score is tied 2-2. This is September of 1988. Score is tied 2. This is an important game, 5th grade game. You want to make sure you win this one. There's a PK in the box, meaning for the non-soccer fans among us, this is a chance for us to put the best player into the game to get the winner. Do the right thing, coach. Get the win. This is how we teach our kids. And if you don't believe me, leave here today, go to any field and watch what happens. Best ones play. Watch what happens. This coach calls me off the bench, which is illegal, because you're only supposed to use the players that are already on the field. I look up to him and he says, Johnny, I need you to go out there and get us a goal. And I say, Coach, I don't know if this is a good idea. Very high-pitched voice. I'm walking with a bent. My legs barely function. I don't have muscle mass at that point. I'm barely getting by. And he can see that I don't believe him. So he kneels down in front of me, kind of puts his arms on my shoulders like this, and says to me, you're going to do this. You're going to get us this goal, and you're going to show us what victory looks like. So with a little pat on the bottom, I jog out there, haltingly, awkwardly, bent over, approach the ball. My heart is, I still remember it. 5th grade, it's a long time ago, but I still remember approaching that ball. The ref steps back. The team's behind me. The goalie is 300 yards in front of me. It looks like I can't even kick the ball that far. I put my best foot on the ball that I could at the time. It slowly, I'm not exaggerating, slowly dribbles away from me to the far side of the goal, hits off the corner goalpost into the goal as the goalkeeper dives and misses it. And this little dude is then surrounded by teammates. Now, some of you are thinking they won. But I think you're missing the story. We won far before that ball crossed the goal line. That story is not about that kind of victory. It's about freedom. It's about understanding why we work, why we lead, why we serve, why we save, why we pray, why we walk in the forest, why we sing to the music that's in our cars, why we enjoy the life we have in the first place, why we play, kids, why we play. That coach showed his team and the other team and every parent who chose to watch what real victory looked like. And there is freedom found in real victory. So in the quiet of your own desks right now, what I'd like you to do is to just take a moment of your day, step away from the game of life. What does real victory look like for you today? And I will not have you share these. So in other words, be vulnerable, be honest. What does it look like in that relationship? It could be plural, like I want to be loved. Or it could be, I need to say I'm sorry. So it could be one. What does it look like relationally? What about physically? What's your health? What about financially? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to fill this out, so you'll have a tiny bit of time. Then you'll have a little bit of homework in front of you. What about emotionally? That's how you show up. That's your attitude. That's how you choose. Spiritually. For some of us, this will be like my mission statement. That's why I do what I do. It's my purpose and my passion. For others, it will be their salvation, the religion they belong to, the beliefs they hold and tether their life to, the foundation on which they rest everything. So what does victory look like for you spiritually? And then finally, and this is not in any order, I promise you, but finally in this sheet, professionally, what does real victory look like for you in the game of life at work? And you'll have 67 seconds to jot down a few more answers. For those of you tuning in satellite, if you want to chat your answer in, even if it's just one of them, let me know what it looks like relationally, or physically, or financially, or emotionally, or spiritually, or professionally, if you'd like. I always love hearing from you. 30 seconds. All right, class. Pens down. Which was my least favorite expression of all time in grade school, middle school, and high school, and college, because my pen was never down when those words were spoken. How about just a couple folks, maybe people we haven't even heard from yet, whether they're tuning in online or they are seated at the end of the table, or the front of the table, or the sides of the table. Well, what does victory look like for you in the game of life in any of these? Kim, your hand was up.
Okay, relationally, I think when my kids say, I love you, or I just have a hug, or I just get to be with them, that really is a big thing for me. I just feel like I'm winning, I'm one.
Right.
They're
When my kids give me a hug, whether they say the words or not, they're showing me they love me, and that is victory. That is awesome. Chris.
When I know professionally I'm all in, that I'm really there for my people.
Awesome. Where do you work?
I work for the Internal Revenue Service.
We're going to end this episode a little early today. The IRS just walked in. This was supposed to be Thursday. They were arriving.
That's why I came from California.
Burn the papers in the back of your... we welcome you, and we thank you for your work. We thank you for your work. It's not lost on me or anyone else who's paying attention. The reason we were able to operate a government is because there's income to do exactly that. I never complain about taxes, and I never complain about those who are collecting it from me or others. So our friend Chris is part of the reason why our government works. So thank you. Thank you for being intentional with your work. Awesome. How about one more at the table, then we'll move on.
Put down
Mary Beth.
relationally interdependence across generations, because I have aging parents and I have 20-something kids, and
All right.
so seeing that, and we had my parents over for dinner last night, seeing that continuum across generations and how we're interdependent.
And Abby, I don't know if I've done this one yet or not, but we should have a whole episode for studio on interdependence. It's such a great word. We are made to do life together, and we are stronger together, generationally included. There's something lost, I think, when we begin building up the silos, not only ignoring other people who are different than we are, but people who are different aged than we are. We're missing an incredible opportunity to learn from the wisdom of those who've come before us, but also those coming behind us. So interdependence. Awesome share, Mary Beth. All right, leaders. We've gone through 2 of these so far. I'm going to share a couple online. By the way, Sandy mentioned being fully present in relationships and at work. Thank you, Sandy, for that. And then Jonesboro. Jonesboro is awesome. Jonesboro is always tuning in. At peace and able to help and inspire others. So thank you, Jonesboro, for those shares. Number 3, and they keep coming in, so if you want to keep writing, feel free to write more. Answering the call to wake up and to truly get free. My buddy Dave Ramsey, who I will be seeing on Wednesday this week, helps people get free from their debt. If you aren't in debt today, it's highly likely you cannot say, baby, I'm free. I'm free. Bull. You're not. So that's a freedom that I think some of us could invest a little bit of effort in. And if we can help you hear it all, make a connection into Dave Ramsey, into his processes, let me know. But Dave is awesome. They do a phenomenal job of that. But let's answer the call to wake up and to get free. Here we go. June 18th, 2002. We all have dates with the phone that change the course of our lives. And by that I mean your day's going along, you're returning emails, you're driving carpool, you're saving for retirement, you're looking for the next job, you're serving your clients, you're teaching at the school, you're doing whatever. You're singing in the car, and then your phone rings. For me, this was before cell technology allowed me to have it in my pocket. It rang at home. It was early in the morning. It was my mother. She's never awake early in the morning, so she's tuning in right now. She knows that I'm being honest with her right now, but she's not awake early in the morning. It was 7:32 or so in the morning. I was getting ready for work, getting ready to walk out the door. The phone rang. I answered, and my mom says, "Have you heard?" No, I haven't heard. And then she said, "Your friend." Jack Buck. And for those of you who have not heard me speak, this story won't connect to the same degree that it may otherwise, but I'll walk you through a little bit of the backstory so you'll know what happened here. She said, John, your friend Jack Buck passed away early this morning. I think it was actually late the night before, but early this morning. And she said his family called, and they want you to go to his funeral. And we talked for a little bit more, and she said he was so proud of you. And then we hung up the phone, and we went about our days. So what was she really saying to me? That's an important question. This man who had heard the phone ring himself 24 years earlier, that a little boy was in a hospital bed dying. Rather than ignoring it or sending out, hashtag thoughts and prayers, man, good luck, we're pulling for you. He, the following day, goes by that hospital and visits that little guy who is dying. And even though I don't give him any physical response to his words, because I'm tied down, I can't move, I can't see, those words changed my life. I have an awful lot of confidence that I have the freedom to be with you today because of that visit. Like it had that kind of impact on me early on in my hospitalization. And even after he left, he goes in the hallway. Those of you who've heard me speak, you know this to be true. He starts crying. He's told by the doctors and nurses the boy's not going to survive. So he's tethered now to that graveyard, that reality. And rather than being tethered to that for long, he moves from fear back into faith, back into love. And he asks the question, what more can I do? And the following day, he comes back and he visits this poor little kid a second time. And then he leaves. And then a third time. And then a fourth time. And then a fifth time. For 5 months, Jack Buck comes back into my life with the words, kid, wake up. Wake up. We all need this, by the way. Wake up. You are going to live. You are going to survive. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile. See you soon. And he kept that promise to see me soon, to wake me up, to walk forward with me for 5 months. And then on August 26th that summer, he picks me up in a Lincoln Town car, takes me downtown, baby. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. That was a party. He learns that night that I cannot hold anything in my hands. He learns that night that I'm in a wheelchair. I can't get up. I'm bound to it. I'm not free. He learns that night that I'm scarred from my neck to my toes, that I'm chained to the graveyard. But rather than allowing me to live there for long, the following day he sends a little boy a baseball, signed by his favorite Cardinal player named Ozzie Smith, and below that ball was a note that said, kid, you want a second baseball. Step by step along the way, freeing this little boy to wake up, to own his life, own his attitude, own his next steps. Everything you guys, you ladies have already been talking about, chatting about, writing down. He's teaching me as a child to do it for myself. What a gift. He taught it to me not once or twice or 3 times, but he eventually sends 6D baseballs, teaching a little nobody that there's no such thing. It's a lie. It is a freaking lie that you matter, that we all matter, that we are made for interdependence, Mary Beth. I'll steal that line coming up in one of the studio chats soon. He keeps coming back into my life, teaches me how to write. Free's going to go back to grade school, eventually high school, eventually college. And he shows up college graduation evening with a package and a note. Those of you who've heard me speak or you read the book On Fire, you know what's in there. It's the crystal baseball that he received himself when he went into the Hall of Fame. It's a once-in-a-lifetime heirloom type gift that some celebrity, some wealthy guy, some socially connected guy gives away to the least among us. I'm not John O'Leary, the speaker, the author of the book On Fire, host of the Living. No, I'm a 22-year-old kid with very limited confidence, very little belief in myself, and I have no clue who I am or what I'm going to do later on in my life. I am tethered still to what happened to me. I'm not free, people. I'm not free. I'm not. And he gives this ball away to the least among us, reminding us, and me in particular today, that you matter. Like, what a gift to give someone. Sometimes through a crystal ball, other times came through a hug. Mom, you matter. Like, you matter. You matter. You matter. This is a picture of Jack speaking on September 18th, 2001. I was there too.
It was awesome.
Oh,
It's one of the greatest, for those of you who live in the St. Louis area, it was broadcast nationally, so you may have been part of it, but the very first activity nationally after September 11th was the St. Louis Cardinals played, I think, the Cincinnati Reds, I don't remember. And Jack Buck opened up the ceremony by reading a poem. And maybe in one of the videos, I'll read you the poem or I'll share the poem with you. But it is a powerful poem from a veteran who received 2 Purple Hearts in the Battle of the Bulge, reminding us what freedom looks like. That they can knock down 2 towers, they can attack the Pentagon, they can drive planes into the soil of Pennsylvania, but they can't steal our freedom. They can't steal who we are and what we really are all about. They can't. No one can. This man lived freedom until the end. He went into the hospital in January 2002 and remained in that same hospital bed for the following 5 months, which is odd because I was in hospital. Anybody want to guess how long I was in? So over the course of 5 months, when he was down at Barnes, BJC, which is about 8 minutes from my house in U City, Mary Beth, anybody want to guess how many times I was able to go down there and see my friend Jack Buck? 5? It's a good answer. The under on that is under. And it's under 4, and it's under 3, and it's under 2, and I won't go down any farther than that because you can see where it's going. But a man who changed my life, a man who affected me so dramatically that I named my firstborn after him. I never once went down to the hospital. Why would I not visit him? I'm opening this up to the table. I'll tell you why in a moment. But why would I not visit a friend?
Painful?
Painful. Absolutely. For lots of reasons. So let's unpack a few of those reasons. Why?
brought back painful memories.
Brought back pain. I hated being in hospitals. Okay? Some of you I don't like being in a hospital bed. I've been in one for 5 months, and every single month or so after I got out, I had to go back for surgeries. I don't like hospitals. So it brought back painful memories of what happened to me. What else did it do? Why else would I not visit
Did you
him?
think you would be saying goodbye?
Did you think you'd be saying goodbye and you thought it'd be painful saying goodbye to a friend? That's part of it. And I also think, for the most part, many of us think we always have tomorrow, which is a dangerous place to live. That's not where freedom lives. Freedom lives today. Forget about tomorrow.
Seeing somebody who was so strong and powerful in your life weak.
Seeing someone that you looked up to who is so strong, now so weak. Absolutely. How about one more and then we're moving on? What about me? What is it about me that would not allow me to go down there? I'll give you a clue. I never felt, what's the next word?
Free.
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 The word worthy.
Yeah, I was thinking worthy.
If you imagine the greatest celebrity, for those of you who live in St. Louis or you're tuning in St. Louis, the greatest celebrity we've ever had in the city, it's not a ball player, it's not a mayor, it's not a congressman or woman, it's not a business owner, it's an announcer pictured on the screen behind me. He was royalty. He was beloved. And for some unbeknownst reason, unexplainable to me at age 9 or any year thereafter, he became my friend. And he kept staying my friend, and none of it ever made any sense to me. It never made sense. And so I never, ever felt worthy to visit my friend. Not when he was in the press box healthy with a crisp voice, even though he invited me all the time to come up and visit, and certainly not when he was dying in a hospital bed. I never felt worthy. The problem with not feeling worthy is then you're not free. So I was never free. And so when that call came in, it alerted me of a whole lot of things, but one of the most painful things it did is that it alerted me to what a lousy friend I'd been and how my own limiting beliefs had affected the outcome of a relationship. I was never able to say thank you to a guy that I loved. That's a painful mistake to share in studio or to live with daily. So maybe a question that we can play off of some other time is, what do you do with painful mistakes? Because there's only 2 ways to take them. You can take it all the way down, man. You can go right to the bar with that one. You can spend the rest of your life in the graveyard with that one. You can, and it's popular, it's common. But the way I responded, I think, changed what happens next in my life, and it may be why we're gathered around this table today. The very first thing I did is I got into my Jeep Cherokee. Love this car. Hopped into my Jeep Cherokee. It was beat down, but I love this baby. Put on my finest $74 suit. And 4 days after I got the call, I went out to the funeral that the Buck family invited me to. What an honor to be invited to that. I pull up into this massive church. And what I remember first is I looked to my left. And this is what I saw. So now my old beat up Jeep Cherokee, which has never received a bath in its entire life, is parked next to, this is a 2002, I Googled it, 2002 Mercedes-Benz. I'm like, ooh, that is a nice looking car. And then I watch as a guy gets out, and it's Dan Dierdorf. Dan Dierdorf is an NFL offensive lineman. He went into the Hall of Fame for that. Then he went into the Hall of Fame for being an announcer. He's a celebrity. He's handsome. He's popular. He's well-spoken. He's rich. And he's Jack's friend. Not only is he Jack's friend, I bet he was the kind of friend who would visit him during the 5 months in hospital. That's the very first thought I had. I bet he was that kind of friend too. So then I look away from the Mercedes. I look away from Dan Dierdorf. And I look in my rearview mirror. I look right over my shoulder. And I'm not seeing this. I'm seeing this. It's a picture of a guy named Joe Buck, who I'd really never met before, but he's a celebrity in and of his own right, and he's shaking hands with another announcer named Mike Shin. It's Jack's son and Jack's partner right behind my car. And right behind all those guys are other guys in fancy suits who were friends with Jack, business owners, tycoons, people known, people of worth, people who visited Jack in the hospital. And so as I watch as these guys shake hands and greet one another, I realize I don't belong here. So I watch them all walk into the church. Eventually the door's shut. I grab my Jeep Cherokee key, put it back in the starter, turn it on, back out, and drive toward home. This is painful. But welcome to In Studio. This is the uplifting version of getting to freedom. And sometimes you gotta go through some low points to get there. Because I'll give away the ending. I'm not weighed down by this one any longer. But I was that day massively. I pulled the car over about 3 minutes away from that church and just broke down crying at the lousy guy that I'd been, at the lousy friend that I was. And I decided I'm not going to be chained by that any longer. I'm not going to be chained by mistakes any longer. So I made a commitment to live differently. And the word we would use today would be to live free. I'm going to live free. And my ask of all of you is, are you? Are you? Are you worried about what other people might think? Are you chained down by debt? Do you struggle with past experiences? Do you live in the graveyard of yesterday or the one coming tomorrow? Because most of us do, and I do too, but I'm working at it. I'm going to scoot through these questions. Remind you of the gift of love. It's unconditional. It releases, surrenders, forgives. It chooses, and it frees. I'll remind you of a definition of freedom. A state of exemption from the power of control of another, including not visiting a dear friend in hospital. John, it's total liberty. It's exemption from slavery. It's exemption from servitude. It's exemption from confinement. And it's yours if you say yes. So I said yes to it. And so did Nelson Mandela. We could spend a lot of time on him, but he says, for to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in such a way that respects and enhances the freedoms and the lives of others. And so I began living free. Here we go. Very first thing I did that day, I think it was June 20th, is I stopped by my grandma and grandpa's house. I love them, but I'd never stopped by their house without being invited. I was with them once a week. Like they were integral in our family. But I never stopped by just, hey, I'm here. I rang the doorbell. And you would have thought the Publishers Weekly was bringing a check for like $10 million. They're like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? They were so fired up. I came in wearing this cheap suit with my tie still up. And I said, I just came by to visit. And for about 2 hours, their grandson, who had never come by unannounced, was free enough to tell them how he felt about them. That was an awesome, long lunch. My grandparents are essentially both deceased these days. My grandmother no longer remembers my name. My grandfather, one of my best friends, passed away 10 years ago. But they knew that day, and then each day going forward, how one of their grandsons felt about them. You know, remember in Mel Gibson's movie Braveheart, what's the final word he speaks? Anybody know it? Freedom. It's kind of how I felt that. Like freedom. Got back in my cheap little car, went home, took off that suit, took a shower, called my mom and dad and said, hey, let's have dinner. So the second bullet on here is to reach out to someone that had done so much for me, but never really been thanked for it. I don't know how you ladies and how you men were at age 22. probably not the guy who showed the most gratitude in the world. So I took him out to a long dinner, and I told Mom and Dad the impact they had on me as a kid and the one they continue to have on me as an adult. Jack's widow, her name is Carol. I called her, and I took her out to coffee, and I told Carol, who had never heard the story. Everybody who is in the boardroom right now has a book called On Fire. They probably read it before. Many of them have heard me speak before. They saw a video of it online. Carol had never heard the story of her husband and the impact he had on a burnt-up little boy named John O'Leary. Jack would occasionally leave, visit some kid, come back and say, oh, Carol, he's really struggling. And then he'd go back the following day. But she never heard the story of what happened. She never heard about John O'Leary Day at the ballpark or the 60 baseballs. She never found out where the crystal baseball that used to sit on their credenza went. And I told her. And it overwhelmed her with joy. Freedom. Freedom. Then I wrote a long letter. And by the way, I've already decided I'm going to read this one to you in one of the studio Sunday messages I send out. So you'll get my Sunday letter that I wrote to Jack Buck. So I wrote Jack Buck a very long love letter. And then I took his son, Joe Buck, who I'd never met before live, out to coffee. And at a Starbucks 3 minutes down the street, tears streaming from my eyes, I read a letter, a profession of love to Jack Buck, with his son seated right across from me at this table. It was brutal. And afterwards, I handed him the letter, and I had the words freedom. Freedom. I became a hospital chaplain. We talked in this room about how I hate hospitals. I don't hate them anymore. I'm free of that. They're not binds that tether me to the past. I don't live in the graveyard any longer. I'm resurrected from that. And so I got to spend 3 years working with kids. The power of mentorship. I became active in Big Brothers Big Sisters. This is what Jack did for me. All he really was a mentor. You can do this as a real estate agent. You can do it at the IRS. You can do it in retirement, Matt. You can do it in leadership, ladies and leaders in life. We can lead people forward through the power of mentorship. I've been matched now twice through Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm active in the board of advisors here in St. Louis. We give to sponsor other matches financially. I believe in the power of mentorship. And maybe the final thing, that the freedom of accepting the story and the mistake and then the resurrection behind it that I received, was the ability to speak. This was not mine. It was a story that I hid from. I wasn't free to talk about being on fire for life. I was living in the graveyard of yesterday. And that ain't freedom, people. That ain't freedom. It's odd to me that the first time I really took the advice from Jack Buck, listen to it, because I heard it a lot, but I finally took it upon his death. Kid, what's the next sentence? Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. You are going to live. You are going to survive. It was a sentence meant not only for a time in hospital, but even as a 22-year-old kid going through my life after his death, and then age 23, and then finding love, and then asking a girl to marry him, and then having kids, and then starting a business, and then starting in studio, and doing the podcast, and writing books, and inviting new friends in to hang out with us today, and people online chatting in from abroad. Jack gave me that. I learned an awful lot from Jack, but I think the greatest gift he gave me at the end was freedom. So as we wrap up, I'm hoping that there may be some questions in a moment that you want to ask. We're going to go just a few minutes extra today. We're going to go about 5 minutes longer because we have friends seated around us live. But the homework assignment is this. What is something that you feel tethered to? What's your graveyard? What's your unworthiness project? What's the lie? What's the mistake? What's the addiction? What's that voice keep telling you that you are not enough of? And then as we go forward over the next few weeks, moving toward our next Live Inspired Studio Webcast 29, I want you to begin to not only identify it, but also how you're going to get free of it. Because none of us today are in a graveyard. Thank God. We'll end up there someday. But we are among the living, and we should act like it. Wake up, Jack Buck would remind us. Wake up. So your homework assignment is to identify what is chaining you down. It could be debt, Dave Ramsey followers. It could be a mistake. It could be a whole lot of things. We all have chains, but we are called to be free of them. That's what love reminds us. So, my friends tuning in online, if you want to chat me any questions you may have, we're nearing the finish line together. We also have 8 brave, courageous servants in-house, some who have driven as far as 3 minutes away. Let's give them a big hand. Others who hopped on a plane, connected through another city, and spent the better part of their weekend traveling to be part of this. So regardless of where you're tuning in from today or where you came in to be part of it live, what questions might you have as we wrap this episode up? It could be regarding freedom and the leader that is still within you, or it could be about anything else in business, relationships, or life that you're just curious about. So we're going to, for those of you tuning in online, it's an hour-long episode. We're going for an hour and 10 minutes today.
I could imagine that if I was reflecting on what are the chains, what are the things that keep me from living free in a more classic sense than what we've described today, that I might want to just run away. And I think this message has to be couched in an understanding that we derive joy through connection with other people and through compassion. And so running away, as opposed to the examples that you gave, which were running to an opportunity and embracing it as we wake up and we become inspired to the possibility of a different tomorrow.
Yes.
It's not about just leaving and running away.
That, by the way, if we can get it, am I on the right person right now? Is that Julie? So there's Julie right now, people. She's our guest. She's our friend. She made it all the way in from Hannibal, which is about 2 hours north of where we are. And Julie's question was almost a statement. But John, when I think about the topic of freedom, it feels to me like running away a little bit like Leon. If we're being really honest, Leon's awesome. Leon ran away. But in running away, he found out what mattered. So and he's teaching us that you can't run away for long by yourself. You can't. But when you run toward others and you live in, like Mary Beth said, in interdependence, you found what you've always been looking for. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. U2 sings a song because I think he's running toward the wrong things. When we lean into one another, we find freedom. You can't do it by yourself. Great share, Julie. What else? What other questions might you have, either online or in the house?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So since then, John, that you had the opportunity, like with Jack and so forth, just to be connected with him, and it taught you so much and gave you a gift. So what goes beyond that? How do you get connected or stay connected, to people? I mean, realistically, internally, not just, because you're with thousands of people all the time, but really that piece of you that really makes you special.
It's an awesome question. So that one comes from Kim, who's a real estate agent and a friend of mine from St. Louis. If you're in the market for a new home, please do call Kim. She'll send our card later on. And the question, in case you did not hear it, is, John, how do you live that like Jack when you're doing it at your best, because you're with thousands of people? The way I do it, Kim, when I'm at my best is one by one. So when I'm speaking in front of thousands, the reason the message typically moves audiences is because they normally come up to me afterwards and they say 2 things. Number one, it felt like you were speaking to me. There was today, or the reason I'm coming in hot today, I'm coming right out of a high school gym with 1,900 teachers and leaders from a district about 45 minutes away, no AC. So I'm up there like, I'm getting a workout up there today. And person after person came up afterwards and they're like, you were talking to me. And then they say, I know it's not like what you've been through, but one guy, his name was Matt, shared, John, 2 years ago, I lost my daughter. And then he explained how it happened. And in part, he had the wrong kind of blanket in the crib. And the daughter was able to pull this blanket on top of herself. And this daughter died. Her name was Greta. So I told my new friend Matt that I will keep Greta in my thoughts and prayers today. And I will. I've already written down her name at my house. I stay in touch with Matt and Greta and Kim and Matt and everybody else, though, one person at a time. I think it's the most effective way to change the world. So right now, my wife can't call me because my phone is on airplane mode. Right now, I'm not thinking about the audience from today. I'm thinking about the 8 people in front of me and the dozens of people tuning in online and the hundreds who will be watching this through the archive section. So I try to be present to the people in front of me. Okay, great question. How about one more in-house and then we'll open it up for the members.
I was wondering what was going through your
This, by the way, is Chris. I'm going to turn the camera around.
going through your mind when you left the funeral home to think, I'm going to go to my grandma and grandpa?
John, what was going through your mind when you left the funeral home and you're like, oh, I'm going to go to my grandma and grandpa's?
Yeah.
Honestly, part of it was my roommates knew where I was going. This is the shame piece or the guilt piece or whatever else. I knew I couldn't go home. What a gift to know like you can't go home yet. You have to sometimes get to the end of you before you can go home. I think the prodigal son learned that. You got to sometimes hit the very bottom before you can finally come home. And so I knew I could not come home because they were like, oh, you get to see all these people. Like they were impressed that I could go.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go. And I wasn't ready yet I never told them that I did not go. I told them it was sad and cool and I lied because I wasn't there yet. So I knew I could not go home. I was a train wreck. And as I was wiping my eyes, I realized this is nowhere to live. I'm not going to live tethered to the pastor in the graveyard of mistakes. And at the church where Jack was the funeral was held was about 5 minutes away from my grandma and grandpa's. So I thought, what's out here? And that's what's out there. You know, I have a strong faith, and Jesus says, let the dead bury their dead. Let the dead bury the dead. That sounds like it's kind of harsh, man. But geez, at the end of the day, is Jack Buck better if I sit there in the back row, arms crossed, feeling like I don't belong? Or is he better with me loving my grandparents who soon will be joining him in heaven and saying, I gotta let you know, Grandma and Grandpa, gosh, I love you. They won the lottery that day because their grandson showed up and said hi. So that's why. I could not go home. I was 3 minutes from Grandma and Grandpa's, and I was inspired to be among the living because I wasn't there myself. Great question.
So you've already told your 20-year-old self how to let go of the past. That's one of your 7 questions.
You've already. What advice would you tell your 20-year-old self? Says Mary Beth. Yes, and it's not only to let go of the past, it's to quit worrying about the future. Freedom is both and. It's not only freedom from the graveyard of yesterday, it's freedom from the graveyard you're marching toward, like it or not. And so I would tell my 20-year-old self to live beautifully, presently, and passionately in this moment, knowing that you were never in control in the first place.
You grew exponentially that day.
Oh, geez.
Emotionally. I mean, that is like...
It's a pretty big wake-up
Yeah.
call. So some of you know,
That's
but I'm working
huge.
on a book right now, and that is one of the stories that
Yeah.
will be included in the book. It's in basically a chapter on freedom. So some of what you're learning today is going to be shared tomorrow in a book that we hope touches lives around the world. So I'm excited about that. But I learned a lot that day. We want to learn at the mountaintop experiences. And yet we seldom do. We learn in the divorce, and we learn in the bankruptcy, and we learn in the addiction, and we learn in the, damn it, I was a bad friend to Jack. We learn in that. And then you can decide, do I become a victim to it the rest of my life, or do I learn from that, become better, more compassionate, more faithful? Your choice. So instead of cursing the experiences, ask yourself, what can I learn in them? Final question. This one from Mike, Baldwin, Missouri. I thought I heard you. No?
No.
Any other questions in-house before we let our friends online run to their next meetings? All right. Donna? Let me make sure we don't have anything here. No questions online. Leaders, ladies, gentlemen, I'm going to hang up with you in a moment. I'm going to party with my friends here for about 10 more minutes. And I want to thank you for tuning in this time, for choosing to live free. It's a choice. Nelson Mandela, one of my heroes, made it during decades of confinement in South Africa and then forgave those who confined him once he was released for something he never did. You don't have to. You can be mad about traffic or mad about the mistakes of yesterday by you or by those around you. But I encourage you today to step into the power of love, and you will find incredible freedom once you get there. So for this time, and until next time, this is John O'Leary live and in studio with new friends, and this is your day. Drink it down, soak it up, and live inspired.
Yay!
Yay!